Have you ever felt like the world turns its back on you, no matter how hard you try? Each small step forward feels like a battle, and hope shatters like glass before your eyes. But what if those darkest moments are the very fire that forges your unshakable will? I've written many times about this feeling. The persistent, quiet sense that no matter how much effort you pour into life, the world remains indifferent. Every action seems to disappear into silence, like a stone vanishing beneath the surface of a deep river. There are moments when it feels like every last ounce of willpower has been drained from your body and soul. Each step forward becomes heavier than the last. Every spark of hope dies before it can light the way. And yet, to the Stoics, it is precisely these moments of despair that become the most valuable material for inner transformation. Like steel forged in searing flames, we too are refined in struggle. There will be times when you feel like you're slamming against a wall that won't move, overwhelmed by pain, weighed down by helplessness. But this helplessness is more than a fleeting emotion. It is what psychology calls learned helplessness, a condition where repeated failures convince us that nothing we do can change the outcome. Yet Stoic philosophy teaches a radically different truth. It is not our circumstances that define us, but how we choose to face them. Today we'll explore 7 Stoic principles, spanning from the psychology of learned helplessness to the spirit of memento mori, designed to help you transform despair into resilience. If you're standing at the edge of surrender right now, please stay with me for a few more minutes. This message was written for you, and from what feels like an ending, you may discover a strength you never knew you had. Principle 1. Recognize learned helplessness. There are days when we wake up feeling like everything is falling apart. No matter how much heart we poured into yesterday's efforts, it feels like nothing moved forward. A small voice whispers inside our head, "What's the point? Nothing works." From that moment, our body grows heavy, our steps slow, and our will quietly slips away. If you've ever felt this way, know this: you're not alone, and that feeling has a name: learned helplessness. Martin Seligman, a pioneering psychologist, once conducted an experiment that shook the foundations of modern psychology. He placed small dogs in locked cages and delivered mild electric shocks. At first they panicked, cried out, and used all their strength to escape. But after failing over and over again, something changed. When their efforts no longer led to freedom or relief, they simply gave up. Even when the door was finally opened and freedom was within reach, something that should have triggered their instinct to run, they lay still, frozen, as if something inside them had died. That is the cruel yet powerful reality of learned helplessness. The brain records a harsh lesson. Effort leads only to disappointment, and resistance is useless. This experiment, though painful, revealed a profound truth about human nature. When life traps us in a cycle of failures, failed exams, lost jobs, broken trust, we begin to collapse inwardly. We stop dreaming. We stop trying. We retreat into an imaginary prison of our own making. The world no longer looks like a battlefield to conquer, but a dark maze where every door seems to lead only to more pain. The greatest tragedy is not failure itself, but the moment we silently surrender, long before we realize we have. Stoicism, the philosophy of resilience, has long understood the silent devastation that can happen inside our minds. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This isn't just a motivational quote you pin to a wall. It's a lifeline, a roadmap back to yourself. When we feel helpless, we're not truly losing to the world around us. We're losing to the thoughts within us. The true battle is internal, and only by reclaiming control over our own minds can we rise again. Understanding the mechanics of learned helplessness is the first crack in the wall. Because just like staring directly into a mirage makes the illusion disappear, naming our worthlessness for what it really is, a conditioned response, not an absolute truth, gives us the clarity to reject it. That heaviness you carry, that belief that nothing you do matters, it's not your fate. It's just a worn-out reflex etched into your nervous system. And anything learned can be unlearned. This is where Stoicism offers one of its most powerful strategies. Separate what is within your control from what is not. We can't stop sadness from showing up. We can't erase past failures. We can't always silence the judgment in someone else's eyes. But we can choose how to respond. We can choose to act with integrity, to keep moving, to keep believing in the worth of our effort, even when no one else sees it. And the moment, the very second, you choose to rise. Again, even after falling for the 100th time, you reclaim ownership over your life. Learned helplessness seduces us by offering a false comfort. Giving up feels easier than trying again. But as every Stoic philosopher reminds us, ease rarely leads us anywhere worth going. Epictetus once wrote, "The essence of growth is not that everything goes smoothly, but that we face adversity without losing ourselves." And that's the heart of it. Each challenge you face, each failure you push through, forges something unshakable in your character. A quiet resilience no one, not fate, not failure, not any person, can ever steal from you. So pause and ask yourself, if I give up now, what was the point of everything I've endured to get here? If this road is filled with thorns, could it be that these very wounds are sculpting the version of me I'm meant to become? To the Stoic, pain isn't the enemy. It's the material, the raw stone. And with each moment of courage, each attempt to rise, you're chiseling something that no one else can replicate. Your unique inner strength. To overcome learned helplessness, we don't have to conquer the whole world. We only need to conquer this moment. The one right here, when your instinct says to collapse. Just one small step forward, even if it's shaky, is already an act of rebellion. And step by step, the fragile version of you from yesterday will fade, replaced by someone stronger, freer. Remember this, every time you want to give up, you're actually standing closest to a breakthrough. Every pain you feel is not just a wound. It's an invitation, an opportunity to become the strongest version of yourself. And if, one day, it still feels like the light has disappeared, then whisper the words of Marcus Aurelius to yourself. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Then keep going. One breath, one decision, one moment at a time. And it's only when we shift our energy inward, toward that smaller, more stable circle, that real transformation can begin. Quietly, subtly, almost like a seed rooting itself in darkness before it ever breaks the surface. Take this example. An athlete falls, injured mid-career. Once a symbol of strength, speed, and triumph, now even a few steps across the room feel like climbing a mountain barefoot. Pain becomes his new constant. In frustration, he longs for a quick return, aches to feel strong again, wishes he could will his body to heal overnight. But those wishes live outside his circle of control. He cannot force torn muscles to knit back together. He cannot rush the body's slow and sacred process of recovery. What is within his grasp? One thing: patience. It's the act of rising each morning despite the dull ache. It's showing up for hours of slow, repetitive physical therapy. It's pushing through stabbing pain with gritted teeth, without complaint, without surrender. And during those long, agonizing days, victory doesn't look like a medal or a podium. It's invisible. It forms deep within. Victory over restlessness. Victory over fear. Victory over the voice whispering, "You'll never get back." When he finally stands tall again, it's not just a physical return. It's a rebirth. He's tougher, wiser, mentally unbreakable. Or take J.K. Rowling, a single mother, unemployed, struggling to survive on welfare. She sat hunched in a small, drafty Edinburgh apartment, manuscript in hand, typing through icy winter nights with numb fingers. Her story, Harry Potter, burned inside her like a quiet flame. But loneliness, poverty, and rejection hovered like storm clouds. Any one of those could have crushed her spirit. She sent her manuscript to publisher after publisher, and heard no 12 times. 12 doors slammed. 12 chances denied. She could have let self-doubt win. She could have believed that success lay in someone else's hands, that her fate was out of her control. And the story of Harry Potter, the magic that touched millions, might have died before it was ever born. But she didn't. She didn't fight the rejections. She didn't beg the gatekeepers. She stayed focused on the only thing she could control. Her effort, her attitude, her courage to try again. She edited, rewrote, submitted again. And on the 13th attempt, a door quietly opened. There was no miracle, no stroke of luck, just the natural outcome of relentless persistence, pointed in the right direction. This is where Epictetus isn't just offering ancient wisdom. He's giving us a survival strategy. His words, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not, aren't passive advice. They're a torch to shine light into the corners of our rage and our despair. Next time frustration bubbles up, ask yourself, how much of this pain is real? And how much is coming from clinging to things I was never meant to control?" When we train ourselves to pull back, to stop reaching for what's not ours, we stop being puppets, flailing in the wind. We become warriors with hands firmly on the reins of our own destiny. And here lies the paradox. The more we let go of what we cannot hold, the stronger we become. The more we channel our energy into our inner domain, our choices, our perspective, our daily action, the more life begins to shift. Even rejection, injury, and failure become part of something sacred, the path of full ownership. It's like hiking a mountain trail in thick fog. You can't clear the sky, you can't see the peak, but you can plant your next step with care. You can conserve your willpower for what matters. You stop wasting your strength fighting battles that were never yours to win. And then, almost imperceptibly, something changes. By fiercely nurturing your small circle of control, those once impossible outcomes begin to move. But here's the next challenge. One even harder than dividing the world into what we can and cannot control. Taking action when there's no light ahead. How do we keep going when reason has failed and even faith feels dry? In the next part, we'll explore the heart of true Stoic courage. The art of moving forward without seeing the exit. Here comes one of the toughest, but most essential, Stoic lessons. How to become an unextinguishable flame in the middle of the storm. Principle 3. Have the courage to act when you see no way out. Mark went bankrupt. Not once, but twice. He watched the bills pile up, his assets disappear, and his belief in himself bottom out completely. For most people, that would have been the end. But Mark didn't give up. Instead, he started again. For the third time. With a tiny company that no one noticed. No media buzz. No fanfare. No promises. Just a fragile commitment. To improve by 1% each day. And from those humble, quiet steps, he rebuilt. Stronger than ever before. Mark isn't a superhero. He felt fear. He had doubts. He endured countless nights with no sleep, and even less certainty. But there was one thing he understood. Something Stoicism had taught generations before him. Never accept helplessness. In Stoic philosophy, this unshakable resolve is called Andrea. The courage to act amid uncertainty, to move forward with no guarantees. To keep going even when the tunnel has no visible light. Seneca once wrote a timeless truth. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Simple, but piercing. Because most of our fear doesn't come from what actually happens. It comes from the disaster movies we play on repeat in our heads. We imagine catastrophe, rejection, humiliation. Scenes far worse than reality ever delivers. And even when hardship does arrive, it's usually far less shattering than we expected. Life constantly tests us in quiet, personal ways. A new mother, sleepless, overwhelmed, unsure if she's doing anything right. Will she collapse under the weight of it all? Or lean into the chaos and nurture each moment of love? A student fails their university entrance exam. Will he let the label failure define his future? Or will he see it as a temporary detour on a much longer journey? Stoicism whispers a steady answer. Right action does not need to come with immediate results to be meaningful. Even when no clear path exists, choosing to take any step forward is already a quiet act of victory. You might be wondering, but what if I'm exhausted? What if I've tried? and nothing has changed. Stoicism doesn't offer comforting illusions. It won't promise that everything will magically be okay. Instead, it gives you something much more powerful. Truth. Uncertainty is not the enemy. It is the nature of life itself. Happiness, then, doesn't come from bending the world to fit your desires. It comes from learning how to train your mind, to stay grounded in your values, even as the world falls apart around you. Epictetus once said, "If you only act when success is guaranteed, you're not truly free. True freedom is the ability to do the right thing, even when the outcome is unknown. Even when no one is watching. Even when every fiber of your being wants to quit. So when you choose to rise again, like Mark did, you're not just rebuilding a business. You're rebuilding yourself. You're forging your soul." That's one of Stoicism's most beautiful paradoxes. The more you act while surrounded by darkness, the brighter your inner light becomes. Every time you silence the voice that says it's over and choose instead to whisper, "Not yet," you're winning a battle far greater than any career or competition. You're winning the battle to master yourself. And when your darkest days come, when it feels like you're walking blind through fog, no handrail, no path, remember, you don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to see the finish line. You just need one small step, one rational choice, one refusal to surrender. And that alone can change the entire trajectory of your life. You don't need certainty. You don't need guarantees. You only need the courage to take just one step forward. Let me ask you something. Have you ever faced a moment when you thought you would break, but instead, you chose to rise? If so, your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. So share it in the comments below. Let it be the spark for someone who's lost their light. And if you want to train that courage with us, every day, hit subscribe. Join the Stoic community. We rise together, one small act of strength at a time. Principle 4. Rethink. Turn obstacles into paths. There are days when we collapse halfway through the journey. Every step forward feels like crashing into a wall that doesn't move. Helplessness, exhaustion, frustration. These emotions swell like a storm, wild and unpredictable. And in those moments, the first words we often whisper are, "I can't." 3. Simple syllables that feel harmless. But in reality, they shut the last few doors we had left open. But what if, just for a moment, you paused and replaced those words with something else? "I'll try." It sounds small, but this shift from "I can't" to "I'll try" is the spark where change begins. Because it's not just about switching words. It's about reclaiming your right to keep going, even when everything around you feels broken. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor and philosopher, once wrote in Meditations, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Obstacles aren't the end of the road. They are the road. Not barriers, but blueprints for growth. Imagine a Roman soldier, knee-deep in battlefield mud. His shield cracked, his sword dull. He's outnumbered, exhausted. Most would say, this is defeat. But the Stoic warrior sees something else. He sees a test, not of brute strength, but of character, of resilience, of steady, rational courage in the face of chaos. And so it is with modern life. Losing a job doesn't make someone a failure. But if that person labels themselves useless, they'll slowly start living into that label. However, if they see the setback as a sign to pivot, to learn something new, to pick up coding, design, or writing, then suddenly, a new door appears. We cannot control everything that happens to us, but we can control the names we give to it. So be careful. Don't let your words trap you in someone else's story. Failure can become a teacher. A dead end can become a detour. It's all about how you choose to frame it. Psychologist Martin Seligman, in his studies on learned helplessness, showed that people who believe they can't change their situation eventually stop trying altogether. But when they believe their effort matters, when they trust that outcomes can change, they grow stronger, more resilient, more alive. And thousands of years before modern psychology, Stoicism already understood this. They didn't wish for the world to become easier. They trained their minds to become tougher. Every step becomes meaningful when we stop fearing failure. Each stumble becomes part of the climb. We stop measuring speed and begin valuing movement. Not how fast we grow, but that we keep going. A student who fails an entrance exam doesn't need to view it as the end. It could be the moment that redirects them toward a path more aligned with their true passion or deeper purpose. A mother overwhelmed after childbirth, drowning in exhaustion and self-doubt, might feel like she's failing. But if she can see herself, even in her weariness, still showing up to love her child, still trying, she will realize the greatest battles are often silent, and the quiet victories, the ones no one sees, are sometimes the most heroic of all. Because when we learn to redefine obstacles, we also begin to redefine ourselves. We become more adaptive, more persistent, more free. Life, even in its harshest form, is no longer an enemy to defeat. It becomes our greatest teacher, delivering every lesson we need, exactly when we need it. So don't give up. Don't collapse. And if you fall, use the ground itself as a springboard. Let your setback become your push forward. Look directly at the obstacle in front of you, and smile. Say to it, "You will not stop me. You are the path I must walk." Principle 5. Connect and train your mind with a community. There are days when our inner world feels like a shattered battlefield. Our willpower dissolves. Our drive crumbles into fragments too small to gather. And in those moments, instinct whispers, withdraw, isolate, shut the world out. But here's the paradox. The time we feel most tempted to isolate is the time we most need others. Not a crowd, just one voice, just one hand reaching out, pulling us back from the edge. Even Seneca, one of the most brilliant Stoic minds, understood this. His letters to Lucilius weren't just intellectual exchanges. They were lifelines. Each word was a thread that connected two souls, reflecting, growing, holding each other accountable in the pursuit of virtue. In today's world, overflowing with noise, competition, and isolation, what we need is not more comparison. We need more connection. A small group, a mastermind community. Not to compete, but to train side by side. Imagine committing with 2 or 3 others. To walk this path with honesty. To share our goals, our setbacks, our fears. For 30 days, we rise together. That is how you bring ancient Stoic wisdom into modern life. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." Living isn't just about surviving. It's about feeling, thinking, connecting. And through genuine connection, we find mirrors that reflect our true selves. Flawed, imperfect, yet striving. When a companion opens up about how they too nearly gave up, you suddenly realize you are not alone in this internal war. The bruises, the setbacks, the silent mornings filled with doubt, they are not yours alone. They are shared by all who dare to reach, to dream, to fight. Picture this: a mother, overwhelmed after childbirth, exhausted and unsure. Now imagine a friend texting her each morning. "You're doing fine. Just one more day. One small step." Those words alone could cut the pressure in half. Her strength, the one she thought she'd lost, would begin to return. Imagine a bankrupt entrepreneur staring at the rubble of his business. A small support group, just 2 or 3 who've also stumbled, could become the reason he doesn't give up, or a student who failed the university entrance exam, drowning in shame. If they find even one person who's walked a similar path, they'll see that failure isn't a dead end, but a necessary curve on a road far from over. Modern science confirms this truth. Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology, proved that one of the most powerful factors in overcoming depression and sustaining hope is meaningful social connection. It doesn't require a crowd. Sometimes, it takes just one voice. One person who listens, who says the right words at the right moment. And it's enough to shift everything. And if you feel like you're drowning, seek a therapist. Know this: asking for help is not weakness. It's courage. It's self-respect. It's an act of protecting the very roots of your soul. Stoicism never taught us to numb ourselves or to endure blindly. It teaches us to see our emotions, to understand them, and to let reason guide them, and, when necessary, to use every tool available, including help and human connection, to live in alignment with our highest human dignity. Connecting with a community is not just comfort. It's philosophy in motion. It's how we embody a core Stoic principle: turning the obstacle into the way. Because when our personal strength falters, the presence of others is not merely a crutch, it's a bridge. A lifeline stretched across the abyss of doubt and exhaustion. Community doesn't erase hardship. It doesn't magically lift the burden. But it gives us a reason to keep walking. Even if all we can manage is one small trembling step. So the next time you feel like giving up, remember, you're not walking this path only for yourself. You're walking for those who believe in you, and for those who, one day, may find life-changing hope in the quiet story of your perseverance. Connection is a quiet rebellion, a refusal to let isolation, the most silent and dangerous enemy, win during your darkest hours. Principle 6. Nurture hope and amour. Fati, what keeps a person alive when everything else collapses? It's not brute strength. It's not intellect. Or strategy. It's hope, that fragile light that finds its way into the darkest cracks of despair. Hope doesn't promise ease. It doesn't shout. It whispers. There's still a way. Just take one more step. But for the Stoics, hope alone is not the destination. They take it further, beyond endurance, beyond acceptance. They embrace amor fati, the love of fate, and this is no feel-good slogan. It's a radical way of life. A wholehearted embrace of existence, not just its beauty, but its brutality too. When you love fate, you stop wrestling with hardship like it's some cruel accident. You begin to greet it like a quiet teacher, asking not, "Why is this happening to me?" but, "What will this teach me next?" Epictetus captured this perfectly. Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens the way it happens. Then you will be happy. This isn't about giving up your dreams. It's not about passive surrender. It's about perspective. Seeing every joy, every heartbreak, every failure as a necessary, irreplaceable tile in the grand mosaic of your life. When you understand this, something shifts inside you. You stop asking, "Why me?" And instead you begin to whisper, "Thank you for the chance to grow." Look at Viktor Frankl, the renowned psychologist and author of Man's Search for Meaning. He endured one of the darkest chapters in human history, life in Auschwitz concentration camp. Everything he once held sacred, his family, his career, his future, was stripped away. His freedom was gone. His loved ones were murdered. His life reduced to bare survival. But Frankl didn't surrender. He chose a different path. He searched for meaning, not beyond suffering, but within it. It wasn't a naive hope that the gates would open tomorrow. It was a deeper belief that even in hell, a human being still has the power to choose how to face their fate. He comforted fellow prisoners who were collapsing under the weight of despair. He shared the last crust of bread, though he himself was starving. And in the stillness of night, he imagined the lectures he would someday give, if he survived. These were not the acts of a man simply trying to survive. They were the actions of someone practicing true amor fati. Not loving fate because it's kind, but loving it because it challenges us to rise. Because even in its most brutal form, fate carries within it the chance to grow. Frankl transformed suffering into a platform to assert one unshakable truth. We always have a choice. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, wrote Viktor Frankl, the last of human freedoms. To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. This is the root of our strength. Not in controlling the world, but in mastering how we respond to it. A student who fails their university entrance exam hasn't reached the end of their story. They've simply reached the end of a chapter. A pause, not a period. If we learn to see failure as a natural part of the process, we don't collapse under its weight. We grow from it. And in that growth, we develop something no school can teach: grit. Because hope, true hope, is not blind. It doesn't pretend that life isn't hard. It knows it is, and that's exactly why it matters. Hope is the small lantern glowing in the night. Fragile, quiet, yet powerful enough to lead us forward through the dark. And when hope joins hands with amor fati, the love of fate, it rises to something higher. You no longer just hope for a good ending. You start to love even the bad ones. And when you do that, you become unbeatable. Because fear of failure fades, and in its place comes something beautiful: curiosity. The hunger to experience, to stumble, to discover. You no longer ask, "What if I fail?" You ask, "What incredible lesson might this teach me?" That is real freedom. Freedom from fear. Freedom from helplessness. Freedom from the suffocating grip of expectation. You stop fighting fate. You become its ally. And once you've learned to nourish hope, once you've learned to love even the stumbles and scars, you're ready for the deepest Stoic lesson of all. Principle 7. Memento mori. Live fully in the finite. There are days when we feel emptied out, when each morning feels like a repeat of the last, when no effort seems to spark progress. And slowly, quietly we begin to drift, letting life push us forward without resistance. But in these exact moments, if we can peer through the fog of disappointment, a different kind of strength becomes visible. That strength is called memento mori. Remember that you will die. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This is not a call to despair, not a warning to live in fear. It is an awakening. It is the reminder that every moment is borrowed, and that borrowed time should not be wasted. When we truly understand that life is fragile, we stop pouring ourselves into things that don't matter. Our decisions sharpen. Our words gain weight. Our steps carry urgency. Imagine a young man lying in a hospital bed after a traffic accident. Just hours ago, he believed he had 1,000 tomorrows. Now every heartbeat feels like a gift. Every inhale, a miracle. When he recovers, he doesn't chase vague ambitions. He doesn't delay life. He lives it. He studies programming each evening. Not because he thinks he should do something, but because each line of code is a declaration. I am still alive. One more idea. One more semicolon. One more breath. Each action is no longer routine. It's sacred. Each moment, a tiny gem of time, a piece of life he refuses to waste. Even Steve Jobs once said, "Death is very likely the single best invention of life. It clears out the old to make way for the new. It reminds us that time is limited, and so we must live deliberately." Each morning, Steve Jobs asked himself one piercing question. If today were the last day of my life, Would I want to do what I'm about to do today? This daily confrontation with death didn't weaken him. It focused him. It gave him the courage to ignore the noise, to brush off ridicule, dismiss doubt, and pour his energy into creating the iPhone. A device that would change the way the world lives, connects, and thinks. The finiteness of life didn't scare Jobs. It clarified him. It burned away distractions. It stripped him of hesitation and gave him something rare. Unwavering purpose. And in the spirit of Stoicism, this is the heart of memento mori. Remembering death is not meant to shrink us. It's meant to ignite us. When we fully face the reality of the end, we begin to see how small our fears truly are. Failure, rejection, disappointment. They become what they always were. Just stones on the path. Not walls, just pebbles. We shrink the scale of our anxieties, and in return, we magnify the weight of our actions. An honest apology. A bold idea spoken out loud. A single moment of rising after a hard fall. These become monumental. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." When we see how fragile life is, how quickly it can vanish, we stop wasting it on pride, on jealousy, on procrastination. Instead, we begin to love more deeply, create more courageously, live more awake. And if we fall, because we will fall, we do not drown in shame. We rise with the knowledge that even this stumble is part of our finite story, a note in the living song we are composing with each breath. None of us escapes the end. But we can choose how we live until that end arrives. Let each day pass full and rich. Let every small act carry the weight of awareness. A hug, a signature, a smile to a stranger. Under the light of death, everything becomes sacred. So if you're standing at the edge, ready to give up, pause. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. And remember, you could leave life at any moment. If that's true, how will you live today? Will you collapse in regret? Or will you rise, steady and purposeful, memento mori? Not to darken your spirit, but to set fire to every heartbeat, to awaken the brightest, fiercest, most resilient flame within you. Wanting to give up isn't failure. It's a signal, a message from your soul. This is your moment to grow stronger. And now, you hold the map. The 7 Stoic principles are yours. If the task lies within your control, pour your heart into it. If it lies beyond your reach, smile and accept it with dignity. So here is your next step. Write down one moment when you nearly gave up. Just a few honest lines. Then, commit to one small action today. Even if it's just a single, quiet step forward. And if you'd like to keep walking this Stoic path with us, hit subscribe. Together, we'll train our minds. Stay steady through the storms, and live each fleeting day with courage, with clarity, and with purpose.